Good morning, Sandra Harrick.
Good morning, Dana. How are you?
I'm doing great. As you can tell, Gabriel and I are here in the studio, and when we say unscripted, we mean unscripted.
Well, I'm sitting out on the deck overlooking unicorn fields, and Alexander or some of our roosters may chip in at any time. So I love that our family is always with us. Two-footed, four-footed, winged, whatever.
That's
Good
right.
morning, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to our show.
For those of you that are listening via Spreaker right now, there is a chat room, and the chat room is open. I'm in there hosting it this morning. Today, Sandy and I decided maybe we wanted to chit-chat about what it means to be on the path. I like that subject.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody's interested in that.
Mm-hmm. So, Sandy, when you think about the path, what do those two words mean to you, the path?
Well, it's a very powerful gathering of two words because for me, the means the one. It means the one that we're looking for, or there's the one you want. So the is very, very important in this little sentence of the path. And the path means to me, in the way that we're thinking nowadays, what is your highway? What is the road you need to walk? What is the little pounded pathway that I need to follow or get on in order to find my way to my goal, my destiny, or to be in agreement with the universe? So it used to be everybody would ask, what's my purpose? And now more people are asking, what's my path? How do I get on my path? Yeah. How about you?
Well, I couldn't agree more. And that word the path, as if it's the one and only. And I believe that the path shifts and changes, and it can have some hairpin curls, turns to it, and sometimes like a roller coaster ride. And frankly, at certain times, divide and separate and sometimes come back together. I don't think that it's a straight path necessarily.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I agree. The entrance to any path may be obvious or subtle, but the path itself is filled with life experiences, good, bad, and indifferent. And I think it's also very important to know that when people ask, what's the path, or we talk about it, that it does not mean that you're excluded, safe, or free from the experience of your life. It means you're going to meet it head on with whatever it brings.
Exactly. Good morning, Lady Hawk. Lady Hawk is joining us this morning in the chat room.
Good morning, Lady Hawk.
Good to have her here with us. So, Sandy, the path, how did you know that you were on a path? I mean, sometimes we just kind of live and we don't realize we're on something of a path. And there are times in our lives when we realize we need to get on a path. I mean, we need to really stop being willy-nilly, or as Elise says, shilly-shally about our lives, and find a path. How did that happen for you?
Well, again, the vocabulary, the verbiage, the being a part of the pioneering of the new age, and having self-help programs be part of my foundation back in the 70s, I was a part of a generation that started a jargon. And that jargon really has given another 40 years of foundation to a vocabulary that this generation, this time in our lives with spirituality and purpose and direction, and all the things, the path that the path has taken to get us to it in all due respect, gave me an opportunity to be in a mindset of my generation, which was no longer the path of a woman that you got married, you had children, you settled down, and devoted your life to the man and the children. My generation came from that chaos and upheaval where we stepped away from the normalcy of what the generation before us really devoted their lives and risked their lives for in World War II and other wars. And I'm being very profound at the moment and historical, because here we are, and all of a sudden when that phrase, the path, came, it came from that path of, the passage of, the great authors that were writing back then, when all of a sudden they're saying, we have an opportunity, a road to follow. I forget who wrote the book, The Road Less Traveled. And I would say in the 70s, when I was ordained, it began the path that I was already on, but I was trying to get off of because of the experience of too much, overwhelming chaos. And the path was very deeply discovered when I was 24 years old, when I discovered and was informed by spirit and by people who saw me become this intuitive, not spiritual yet. Those words were really not used yet. I think it's important for us to kind of follow the jargon of, all these years of what's going on. But the intuitive inside me became so obvious to people and frustrating to me. Because how do you find your way to use a gift or develop a gift? And people started saying, well, it's your journey, it's your path. How do I find my way? So I would say when I was 25, 26, 27, that led me to be ordained. And then it was like, oh my God, how do I bushwhack through this to even have a path? How about you?
It does feel like bushwhacking sometimes, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get out that bush hog and ride it through Well, for me, it took a moment of crisis in my life, understanding that I was certainly different from others in that I was born with the ability to see and hear and all of those good kinds of spiritual gifts. And it was at 30 where I came to a place where I really needed somebody to tell me who, what, where, when, and why I was and am the way that I am. Right. And it set me about meeting my spiritual director at the Dominican Center here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and having a beautiful conversation with Sonia Choquette in her home in Chicago about the gifts of the Spirit and the charismata, and learning that the way that I was created did have a purpose. There was a path to that, but learning the path of how to use what it was and is that Creator gave me was where the bushwhacking began. And for me, very blessed that Sister Irene Mary came into my life to help me develop my skills and my gifts and my talents with regard to seeing. And then learning how to discern, right, which was the right path. And whether we call it bushwhacking or discerning, Sandy, it is amazing how the path can lead us down these little trickly trails where we realize, oh, this isn't right for me. This isn't what I was necessarily looking for. Ouch, that hurt. Right. And yet even in those trickly trails that lead to sometimes hurtful places, they're all an opportunity to learn about what to become and what not to become. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think what you're saying is really pristine, and I want to again make note of the generational timing of it, because I started mine through, again, the chaos of being exposed to some teachers, and exactly, those trickly trails were sometimes chaotic cliffs and hopeful ideals of, oh my God, someone sees me. Oh my God, someone's going to characterize me. I'm not alone. Someone's going to explain something to me. And then you're coming along when you're 30, which would have been in what year?
That would have been in 1992.
So look at all that time already where the New Age is really being formulated to the point where it would even go into the place of a church and start being able to have sisters talk about something and not have them shunned or made wrong, that the church is allowed to honor something and honor you and your holiness. And there's that place now here in 2018 that the verbiage or the discovery and the people that are starting out or continuing or even striving and finding their way, that there's more alliance and agreement that a path even exists, and that it would be some type of a salvation if we could find it and be on it. And so how do you and I sit here in the beauty of where our paths have brought us, as I'm still on my path? My path has not brought me to, this is it, this is the final place, unless I die tomorrow or today. It's brought me to a place where it's good to nest and take the path out of it and find a path back into it. That I have found a home for the moment. And part of my path was that I was always having to find a home. I did not have a stable foundation because my path took me across the ocean, took me across America, bounced me around cities. It was very chaotic, but it was my path. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to talk about how do you make peace when your path really does bring chaos and upheaval. And it's still the path.
Mm-hmm. Right. The path doesn't mean that everything is going to be comfortable and easy. For me, what the path brings, even when it is topsy-turvy, what it brings to me is an understanding that there's always something greater going on in the grand scheme of my life and my purpose for being. And whether we call that keeping the faith or just understanding that we're part of a larger picture, for me, that has been what has kept me on steady ground.
Absolutely, and it's fascinating you bring it to light, because yesterday I posted on my site a picture of Okamura, and that is one of those pivotal places in my life that I got to in New Mexico, that my path brought me in a direction because things weren't going my way. I had to get from California to Connecticut to get a plane to get to Geneva. And it's like, well, I could have just flown, but my car didn't sell. And it was like, well, but I'm going to have to drive my car across America. And I thought, well, if I'm going to drive, I'll go and see my friend in New Mexico. Never been there, but I met her in California. And because I got there, because Spirit, in all of its generosity, said, I have knowledge of you. I don't think Spirit has faith in us alone. Spirit, our guidance, our guides, have knowledge of us. And they don't always give us the knowledge and don't worry, it's going to be okay. It's, I know who you are before you do, and keep coming this way. Keep coming this way. And what I wrote was in that place of, when I got to Okamura and saw Crystal Mountain, that mountain bestowed love upon me, that in the crisis of where am I going, how am I going to get there, and who am I? And I'm listening to Spirit guide me. I received a love from it that was greater than I even knew that I was being loved. I thought I would be loved, rejected, so many things. Spirit literally holds that path. Our path even holds the place for us to walk on that says, I know your footprints. I know your cadence. Mm-hmm. I know when you fall that it's you. And I know and trust you'll find your way to get up. So there is that place of, it doesn't do it for us. It does it with us because it knows us and gives us the respect of finding out who we are by experiencing something, not by saying, well, you're this, don't worry about it. It's, I know who you are. Keep looking. The path is also internal. The path to find who we are, not just where do we put ourselves. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that it's brilliant. And our path has an intelligence all of its own, because the path really is the experiences of our soul unfolding.
Absolutely.
And so when we are tightly connected to our soul, or we even, take a moment to acknowledge that we have one, and to sit with it every day and to ask the question, where am I going? Do I go right? Do I go left? And follow the promptings of our soul, of, our guardian angels, whatever that means for you, our celestial help in the unseen realms. But to ask and to understand that we are always connected to everything that is seen and unseen, and to trust in that. And the love of the mountain, from the way that you're describing it, was speaking to you. It was speaking to your soul, and your soul is connected to that mountain. And so the communication was something that you recognized, and your soul understood its beckoning. And
Absolutely.
a lot of times on the path, we're so frenetic in our path that we forget to take the time to sit and breathe and to ask the path, where am I now and where am I going? What do I need to prepare for? Or at least show me.
To take pause on it.
You got it.
Don't just trudge through and say, I'm on it and I'm going to get to my goal and now I have to get there. And you're not taking a look at the view. You're not pausing to find out and appreciate what are the values that you're passing.
Right.
iPad here. What is the path bringing me to? What do I get to learn from being on the path, rather than just use the path to get to your ambition or your drive? And there are people that said, I don't want to look, I want to go. Just get me there. I don't want to have to feel. I want this over. And Spirit goes, if you miss out, fine, but you'll be back. So you may want to feel it now, so it's in your DNA of your soul. And if you don't, you will return. Or find that you have another experience similar that will give you the opportunity to enrich yourself with an experience.
I like that.
Wisdom comes from the enriching experiences we have, not just the ambition of what we desire.
Absolutely. And, part of the path that still astounds me, being on the path of my soul, is how sometimes our soul brings us to places completely and utterly unexpected. We get these magnificent surprises, and we do have to have a little bit of a strong constitution sometimes in order to say, okay, I'm being brought to this place. I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to do this thing because it feels right to my soul, even if I am feeling a little bit scared or intrepid at this moment. I'm going to go where my soul is taking me. And the further we go along following the voice of our soul, which I believe is the voice of the Creator within us, it is astounding not only the depth to which we are able to descend into spirit, descend into our soul's journey, but also the heights to which we do ascend, bringing us closer to our Creator and the purpose for our creation.
Right.
What have been some of the biggest surprises to you, Sandy, in your life you never thought you would experience in your life?
Oh, good God. Number one, my whole life. And I say that from, again, being somebody that was born during a generation that, as I was growing up, it was one modality, and then at the age of, 1965, the chaos of the Vietnam War, of the axis of humanity altering, all of a sudden women's rights, all of a sudden the liberty of sexuality, the liberty of sex, drugs, rock and roll, the liberty of the chaos gave an opportunity to see something in a new way, rather than out of the obligation to only fit in one track. So the surprise for me was, oh my God, I'm given freedom that everything I was brought up with told me I wasn't allowed to have. So the surprise was, now I'm giving this freedom. There's where the integrity comes in. There's where the discernment comes in. So does my soul act out? Does my soul walk the fine line? Does my soul take advantage? And the biggest surprise was, in all due respect, finding out who I am, not just being what I was told to be. And I think one of the greatest moments that you're really asking me about is when I was very satisfied to not have to go to Europe when Findhorn, if anybody's interested, Findhorn was one of those great communities in Scotland that was one of the phenomena of organic culture and spirit and fairies. And if you were involved with spirituality back in the 70s, you went to Findhorn. And I had an adverse reaction to it. I don't want to go to Europe. I don't necessarily need to go to. You know, I'm kind of like the spiritual New York chick that chews gums and swears rather than wears fairy clothes and wafts and grows my hair long and doesn't wear makeup. I didn't fit the motif. So the surprise was when my spirit guide, Sir Charles, was channeling one night and said, everybody get ready. In a month, in a year and a half, Sandra will be going to Switzerland. And to know in that moment that my guidance was not having me stumble into something. It had a direction for me to be guided towards. And my humanness did everything in its power not to have that happen, because I listened to him and thought maybe San Francisco. And within a year and a half, I was sitting in downtown Geneva. And the biggest surprise was, no matter how I thought when I got there, how is this going to work? Oh my God, it's not working. Just in the nick of time. Spirit was, you need to do this, write this letter. You've been given a name. Write to this person. The surprise, gratitude, was when I met that person, it was like, wait a second, they're interviewing me. I know how to interview. Let me interview them too. And the surprise was not just go, oh my God, you're going to give me a job. It was like, wait a minute, what's the job you're asking me to do? Is my spirit in agreement with it? And so the surprise, no matter how many surprises I've had, was to discover who I am when I'm surprised, how I respond to it, even if it's good news or bad news. That I just don't go, oh God, I'm safe. It's like, oh God, okay, I may be safe, or now I'm in chaos. But like you said, what's the bigger picture? Because there's always a view from another angle. Even though I may be only in one aspect at that moment. The surprise is if you give anything time, the view changes.
You got it.
How about you?
Well, for me, it really is what you so beautifully said. It's discovering who I am. And looking back upon, my journey, my travels to Egypt and far-flung places, and understanding why my soul was called to those places, and learning through my ancestry, which that's kind of a hot topic right now, DNA testing and all of that, because we have a lot of people who are convinced that it's a government plan to whatever. I'm not really a conspiracy theorist, so, but anyway, that's a whole other show. But to understand, as you say, looking back, we can see, and for me, when, as an adopted person, receiving the results of my DNA and learning that my origin is North Africa and West Africa, and understanding the reason that I'm so drawn to that culture, to those smells, those sounds, those places, and of course Scandinavia and Native America, and looking at the way that our path is also driven by our bloodline, our DNA, our cellular memory, all of those things that our ancestors have gifted to us, even if, as in my case, I was completely unaware in the physicality of who I am. In other words, what I was told, the story that I was told as an adopted person. But to see that despite whatever story I was told, my soul, my DNA, my bloodline knew better and took me to those places and experiences that felt like home so that I could learn more fully about who I am.
But even though you knew better, it didn't mean it didn't bring you anxiety and anguish. Part of your path was to trust yourself no matter what anybody else was saying. And so many people were dismissing your own reality, and it brought you in angst.
Yes.
And so, therefore, the beauty of whatever they're doing with getting your DNA, the beauty of the path, for me, in having you say this story is now your soul is not made a liar.
Exactly.
Now your own concept of yourself is validated rather than dismissed or said, how dare you, or how foolish, or get over yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's such beauty in that.
Yes.
And converse to everything that you and I have said so far, the path also takes us to very ordinary places. We're not always called to Egypt or Geneva, or sometimes we're called to work in an office with a group of people and to be part of a mindset, or to work with a charity cause, or whatever it happens to be. That sometimes we can think, well, what kind of a path is this that I'm having? I've never traveled abroad. I've never had a great epiphany or an apparition. So, gee, what kind of a path am I having? You're having the path that's perfect for your soul. And you and I have very ordinary times in our lives. Sometimes you and I have ordinary times together.
Absolutely.
And they're just as exquisite and precious as the times that you and I are abroad or in ceremony or what have you. The path has so many facets. I like the way that you said it, that there are many views. And so, yes, Catherine is saying, or a quiet storage business. Absolutely. Yes. The Walmart greeter has a job. And one of my favorite Walmart greeters is in Greenville, Michigan, because boy, when you walk in, you get a good morning, hi, hello, how are you today? And you feel wonderful. It changes in that moment. It uplifts you. So, Sandy, for those that are listening to us and thinking, gee, I want to live their lives, because that's pretty exciting. Mine seems so ho-hum and doldrum. What do you say about that?
There's a beauty in discovering the beauty of normalcy, of what does normal mean to you. Because normal to me is certainly not normal to somebody else. And part of my normalcy was hoping that I would be more normal. I believe, and I see it in the beauty of my family and the beauty of people that I graduated high school with, that 50 some odd years later live in the consistency of they live where they were born in the same town. They held down the roots in the community. So that 50 years later, somebody said, oh my God, I brought my grandchildren to you. Oh my God, you made our Sundays. Oh my God, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't feel like I had a place to come to. Oh my God, you're the person that was quietly inspiring me as you were doing your quote unquote routine job. And there is a treasured moment. It makes me want to cry. It's interesting to know that there are touchstones required so that when we do land or when we do go to that place of how do I remember me, I just got lost. Because whenever I got lost, I came back to Connecticut or I came back to Okamura. Whenever I felt, and it wasn't so much lost as the crisis of something is over. And the net hasn't been, shown to me of where I'm going to get caught on the fall. But something's so over, it's done. You can't even try to make it continue. That the people who are in their everyday life, having children, running businesses, keeping the community safe and sound and functioning and questing to have a dignified life and to grow with their community and have their community grow so that people can be born and have a place to leave from and come back to, that is significant. I treasure the honor they give me, that when I walk in, they're there. And know that that's where the tears come from, is that their job is to be the beacon in my life to come out of a storm too. Doesn't mean that they're living less than a life, because they're still living a full life. And they can be who they are in that life, in their spirituality, in their community, and they stay there. I don't have a community, quote unquote, that I'm quote unquote there and they can always rely on me. I bop in and bop out. But to know that somebody's purpose is to stabilize for so many others that road, that path, that when they arrive there, it's familiar because It's constant. And to be gifted by Spirit with something that's called your light is constant. And that you never turn it off when a wayfarer comes in. I may go out and have an adventure and bring you back the story. But do you know how good it is to hear the stories that you're having because you're there, and you show me the pictures of your grandchildren and your children's children and now your great-grandparents and what you've done to the community I was born into? That's profound.
Mm-hmm.
And I thank you.
Beautifully said. With that, Sandy, we are at the bottom of the hour. And, amazing. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And the path really is about shining your light wherever you're called to shine it, I believe.
Absolutely.
Sandy, last word.
Yes, I have a new website, sandraharrick.com. Thank you, Lily. Please go and push like and have a view. The path has brought me to another page, and the page is sandraharrick.com. And I want to say thank you to everybody for being curious about their life, and that part of your curiosity brings us to Dana and I. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be on your path by sharing ours.
Beautiful. Blessings be, everybody. Have a beautiful day.
Bye.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Dana.